I would like to call upon Susan Lloyd of the Zilber Foundation, who is going to do the honors. Susan.
Good afternoon. Today's speaker, Donsia Strong-Hill, is comfortable across all kinds of settings. I've seen her operate effectively in a corporate boardroom. I've seen her facilitate community conversations in Milwaukee neighborhoods. I think this is because she's what some people call a deep generalist. She has expertise in real estate, finance, community development, a whole range of things and areas of endeavor that she acquired over a long career that cut across many different kinds of settings. She's worked in government at the state and at the federal level. She's worked as a financial planner and developer of financial packages for tribal authorities. She's worked in public housing. She's worked in the energy field. She has worked in a number of different settings. Now she is serving as the executive director of LISC Milwaukee, and she's bringing to that particular position, which she's now held for about 2 years, a tremendous set of values that make her a very strong advocate for Milwaukee and a strong advocate for Milwaukee neighborhoods. Without further ado, Donsia Strong-Hill, LISC Milwaukee.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Rotarians, and current and former members of the LISC Advisory Board and Honorary Board. What Works Cities describes the concept of community development as having originated in the late 19th century when reformers discovered what they called America's backwards areas. American reformers have struggled to remedy these problems of poverty in the places where low-income people live for over 100 years. Over time, these areas have housed unwanted immigrants to becoming concentrated centers of urban minority poverty. The community development field had to emerge from the shadow of the top-down approach embodied in the urban renewal and bureaucracies of public housing. Practitioners realized that they had to combine a passion for justice with viable management and business practices. So those who know me often will hear me say, we cannot solve these most intractable problems with passion alone. We need to have the best and brightest minds committed to the work of having folks do better and be better. So we learned to keep practitioners accountable for their work and to measure our accomplishments. In 1980, using a grant of $9.3 million from the Ford Foundation and 6 major corporations, a Ford Foundation program officer established the Local Initiative Support Corporation, or LISC. And our model was born. We give loans, we provide loans, we don't give loans, we provide loans, we give grants, and technical assistance to CDCs. 4 years later, LISC had obtained more than $70 million from 250 corporations and foundations and 3 federal agencies, and set up 31 branch offices and raised funds from local sources. So the LISC Milwaukee office was started in 1995. Don't move there, though. It was a long-term coming for us, about 10 years later. Initially, the mission was affordable housing. But in order to really drive community change, it takes more than housing. And so you need to provide operational support for organizations. We need to provide technical training and assistance, strengthening organizational capacity. And that's not a small feat, because for some reason we have decided that we want to support people who work in community development in the nonprofit sphere, not usually at the highest levels. But this is important work that will rise up many and make it better for all of us. And so I want to call to action to think about ways that we can encourage those of the brightest minds to come to this work, because that is what it's going to take to lift these most intractable problems. Finally, LISC is unique amongst community development finance entities or institutions in that we make revolving grants available, these pre-development seed capital. That means that you come to us and say you want to do a project, and if after 3 years you haven't been able to get it going, the grant is forgiven. But if you in fact make a go of it, then we want you to pay that money back, and it's the gift that keeps on giving. So our substantive model has evolved over time, and integrating programs and funding streams to create multifaceted approaches have shown us that single siloed strategies do not work on their own. We have to break down silos in government programs and create innovative financing for investments in hard-to-serve communities. We must simultaneously invest in both places and people. This is what LISC nationally offers. We don't offer all of that here. There are 7 of us who work here, and I meant to introduce my colleagues, Beth Hasselbeck and Bess Earl, who work on many of the projects that we're talking about today. But this is the menu of what we could bring, but LISC is local. And so it depends on what the capacity is in the community in which we are working, and it depends on the issues and the problems that we're trying to address. So the partners define the work. That said, since 1980, LISC National has invested $17.3 billion, leveraging over $50 billion in development costs and programming. So let's bring this locally. This office of LISC, and I've only been here 2 years, so much of this was done by my predecessor, Leo Reese, and whoever was before him. But we have currently leveraged $453 million in total development costs. And so what exactly does that mean here for us? Well, it means that in our financial opportunity centers, a single mother or a reentry father who goes to get the help for work training, to learn financial literacy, to set some goals, and then work toward them, to repair their credit, and to move forward in their life so that they become a beacon for their children to aspire to be like. So at our most recent opening of our FOCs at the Milwaukee Urban League, with Director or CEO Hall, we had a young woman who spoke about what the FOCs had meant to her. She had been part of the Riverworks Financial Opportunity Center. And I'm known to cry when I talk about this. She talked about going there and trying to work through the program, getting off track. The financial coach would not let her go, would increasingly reach out to her to bring her back. She set goals, and her credit score was about 450. A couple months ago when she was there, over a almost 2-year period, she had raised her credit score up to over 620. She was able to move into a new apartment, and she was well on her way to save for a new home. That's what this work is about, and that's what these numbers mean. 2 years ago, we, upon taking the helm, we identified MKE United and the downtown agenda as an opportunity. And it was an opportunity for two reasons. One, their footprint filled out the space around the downtown development and the new proposed transit lines. And so there was an opportunity to leverage and layer resources. And as an old bond counsel and underwriters counsel, I know about capital stacks and leveraging and layering resources. So let's take advantage of the work that somebody else is doing. Let's get in there and see how we might be able to help or take advantage of something. The other reason is a desire to mitigate displacement and dislocation. Because equity means that when something new happens, the people that have been there the longest don't get displaced. They should not have to leave because there's something new and the place is more desirable. And so we practice at LISC here the concept of equitable economic development. And so those who are there and those who are within the work that we do have to experience a bounce. And for some of us, it takes nothing. For some of the rest of us, it takes a whole lot. And for a few others, they really need the boost. And this is a picture that PolicyLink uses that brought this home for us. So within the footprint, what that means, to bring it home, is within the footprint of the work, there are naturally occurring affordable housing. Naturally occurring affordable housing are those housing that take less than 30% of an income and are not subsidized. And those housing units are most at risk when you have substantial development. So nationally, there are 17.9 million renter-occupied units of 5 or more, and that's the definition of multifamily housing. 1.2 million are public housing units. 1.36 million are project-based Section 8 housing, which means they were built to house people who are eligible for Section 8 wage limits. 2.1 million of the folks or units are being housed with federal vouchers, and those are private sector folks who accept Section 8 vouchers. And then 2 million are low-income housing tax credit housing, which we are familiar with as being built on the north side of Milwaukee. That leaves 11.3 unsubsidized housing, period. Luxury rentals take up a big part of that, and that leaves about 7 million unsubsidized but affordable at 30% or less than median income. I learned something last week. In fact, there is not one zip code in America where someone earning minimum wage could rent a 2-bedroom apartment on that salary alone. Imagine that. So these units are precious. So moving the work that we do to complement MKE United to be able to speak to the displacement and dislocation, while at the same time working with our partners in other neighborhoods like Zilber and Northwestern Mutual and Greater Milwaukee Foundation, became work that we had to do. So the first area that we are trying to tackle was commercial corridors. And this is a picture of Cesar Chavez, but in the commercial corridors within the footprint of MKE United, we wanted to make sure that these were viable and that things were happening that would make these vibrant and places that people would want to come and places where people could find the necessities that they needed for their everyday life. We know that that is not the case currently. In Detroit, they have, over the bankruptcy, have come forward with a lot of technologies and recent incredible improvements. One of those is Loveland Technologies. It is an app for your smartphone, and they've used it in Detroit, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus. And what it allows you to do is to take a parcel of land, take a picture of it, download, well, the first thing you do is you download the assessor's data, you take a picture, you start augmenting and adding information. And this is used as a community development organizing tool. a way to engage the community to learn more about their community and the residents of the community to learn more, and at the same time, be able to interact with the bids. So the 6 bids were made to be part of a consortium, and we went into an MOU with the city to give the bids training, to provide them assessments, to help them organize in a peer-to-peer relationship. And then bringing the Loveland tool said to us, we have these properties that are available and need more work. We have these that need a little bit of work. We have these that are deeply troubled. And the reason we wanted to find that out, because we need to know what kind of work there is to do. So we then took a trip to Detroit with 6 alders and community members to talk about their Detroit Motor City Match program, which really enlivened and invigorated their corridors. What we learned there, as we brought this back, was that if we instituted that program here, we would in fact flip the neighborhoods. We would wind up with a program with a business competition that would bring others from outside of the neighborhoods and the corridors into the community, and other folks would never have a chance. And so we decided to put a halt on Brew City Match. You may have heard Julia Taylor and I talking about bringing Brew City Match here. And we stepped back and said, what do we need? We need training so that we develop small businesses for people in the neighborhoods. We think that there's an opportunity for folks who are reentering citizens, who are coming back, who are probably never going to have a regular job, but they have a skill, maybe they've learned something, maybe they are learning something, and there's an opportunity for them with appropriately trained and then financed to maybe have their own business. And so we worked with the African American Chamber and the Urban League to get a license for a program called Mortar. The website is wearemortar.com. This is a culturally contextualized business training accelerator program that we hope to launch in June at the African American Chamber, which will give people in the neighborhoods an opportunity to learn how to be a business. It will also provide an opportunity for them after they're done. We were able to get a grant from Chase to establish pop-up shops. And we've selected 3 corridors to have a storefront. Lindsay Heights, Cesar Chavez, and historic MLK will each host a pop-up shop. LISC will pay for the rent for these pop-up shops for 8 months. We'll be able to rotate 12 of these mortar-type businesses, but also businesses in the city that are maybe operating online. Maybe they have a first site and they want to try out a second site, and they'll be able to do that at a discount here. And so again, trying to revitalize and involve the community in the work that is needed to bring these back. But then we're totally about an integrated approach. We have set up an MOU with the city, as I talked about, with a bid consortium to work with the Associates in Commercial Real Estate. That's the ACRE program that many of you have heard about. And this is a program that creates minority developers. We provide the training for minority developers. And the city has made 12 sites available on these corridors, and we're clustering them so that the ACRE students currently in their second phase of the training, they're called fellows now, have a chance to do a proposal and try to raise funds and present to take on one of these city properties in one of these corridors. So if we cluster them and you have 3 or 4 happening at the same time, hopefully close to these pop-up shops, we can see some revitalization in a particular node. Also among the work that we're doing, other ways that LISC coordinates, is with a social enterprise cohort that we're working on with Bader. And in this way, we want to help the neighborhood associations, community benefit organizations, and CDCs to figure out how to become sustainable. What can they do well while doing good? And we're excited that Bess Earl is going to lead that work for us, and we look forward to sharing more about that. And then finally, recently you may have heard about the tax bill, which creates opportunity zones. That is an opportunity to have your capital gains over a period of time wiped away if you invest in certain areas. 25% of eligible tracts were eligible for this treatment. The state went through a process. We coordinated 5 other members of the Community Development Alliance, including Zilber, Greater Milwaukee Committee, Greater Milwaukee Foundation, Children's Hospital, Northwestern Mutual, to go through all of the Milwaukee census tracts, weighting where we were going to develop money, where we were going to develop projects, what projects we knew other people were working on, where LITEC had been planned, where the city has said that they have an interest, such as the harbor, Northridge. And we suggested through the governor, through WIDA, that they make 26 of these available in Milwaukee. We're really pleased to say that the governor and WIDA agreed with us, and 22 of those are community development sites. They're going to be opportunity zones. And so we are just very hopeful that we can leverage those dollars, and they'll be coming in through a fund that you'll start to hear more about. So those are the ways that LISC operates and with our partners. So the last thing that I want to tell you about, and of course I forgot the slides, we're doing a community book read. And we want to talk about how we got this segregated. There is a book by Professor Rothstein, The Color of Laws. Professor Rothstein is coming to speak for community advocates, I believe, on the 26th, but we've invited him back here for October 16th. But in the meantime, we're asking folks to get into groups. The Rotary sounds like a lovely book read opportunity to read The Color of Laws, because we have a choice to make. Do we want to have islands of concentrated poverty, or do we want to create opportunity for all? Thank you so much. Do I invite the questions, or does Rita? Well, besides leaving your businesses and coming in to help run this work, to the extent that you are able to serve on boards of community development, corporations, and nonprofits, it's really helpful to have the talents that you have. I'm the first one to admit that I am going through leadership training because I have not used my board or my honorary board the most effective way. And those of you who are here and are in those positions expect to hear from me in a much deeper way. But the opportunity to serve with people and share the talents that you have cannot be overstated. When you hear about community opportunities, share, be there. And then when you have an opportunity for community to learn more about what you do, or to see a theater event, or participate in something else that you are not going to be able to use the tickets or whatever, that's an opportunity to make sure that people are not stuck in concentrated poverty, but get a chance to see other things. The idea that we have children that are living 2 miles away and don't know that we have a lake kills me. I don't even do education, but I can't stand to think that they cannot hope and will not understand what fresh water means and what it means to this place that we all live in.
What area of the city are you most excited about?
I am most excited about those 26 census tracts that are going to have the opportunity to get investment. We have a map. I don't know if we are able to put that up or not so that you know exactly where they are. But I think WIDA will have a fund that will be looking at those places. I think Greater Milwaukee Foundation will look to support those areas. It's the central city. It is, so we want people to buy homes. I cannot disagree more. Because when you buy a home, you buy it so that your investment grows and you use it for retirement over time. To have somebody buy a piece of property where nobody else is going to put anything that's going to catalyze development doesn't seem to be a smart choice to make. So can we all work together to get catalytic development done so that when people buy a house, they can experience growth in their equity. So there are a number of ways that other places have been able to fight displacement, and I too experienced that in Cambridge, where 1 year you live someplace and it's affordable, and then somebody buys it and you've got to move. In other cities, there are pots of money that are available for seniors to help keep their taxes down. There are, and they can use this to pay the taxes for the seniors so they get to stay in their house. There are acquisition funds that are available that where the city, usually it's not run by a city, but it's run by a community groups that's closely related or affiliated with the city, and they are able to buy vacant lots that they can then either put in a community land trust or they can build city affordable housing on it. Those are two ways that have worked. Another way is to, when housing is growing out of its preservation, so low-income housing, tax credit housing, has to remain affordable for 15 years. Here in Wisconsin, WIDA requires 30 years if you take an additional loan from them. But at the end of 15 years, being able to get control of that property before it goes into the market is another way of keeping it affordable. We have so many vacant lots here that if we could get control of those in a land trust that was operated in part by the people of a community or a land trust board, that might be a way to avoid that. And in some places, it's just not going to happen because you don't have the tools available to you. The tools we have in Wisconsin, because of our Constitution, are much slimmer than those in other places, unfortunately. But did that answer your question, or do you want something more specific? So the number of houses and apartments financed through LISC or LISC-related dollars is 2,534, representing 1,815,000 square feet of commercial and community space finance. LISC just got in the business of supporting economic development and business support. Our new CEO, he's been here just about 6 months shorter than my stay here, has made economic development a big part of what we do. He served as the Secretary of the Commerce for the Commonwealth of Virginia and understands firsthand that it takes businesses and jobs in order to move everybody forward. And so he has made it a part of our we just have a newly developed strategic plan. 50% of our work at the end of the next 5 years has to be coming from economic development. So this is something new. We're figuring it out. We're partnering with WIBIC right now because they do a lot of small business financing, but understanding what it takes and thinking about the ways to do it differently, because of course we don't want to, we want to be good partners and good neighbors, and we don't want to duplicate the work that somebody else is doing. Not when we're preaching that to every other nonprofit to stay in your lane. But we think that there's an opportunity for worker co-ops, again, for people who are hard to employ, will not have the ability to go into regular employment, but to think about how they start and work that way, because that will preserve some families and that will help some children. The City of New York has a worker cooperative initiative, and I invite you to look at their small Office of Small Business has this initiative. They have a great website, 3 years of annual reports, and they've done a really good job with that in creating additional work. I think they're up to about 300 jobs created through those. Thank you, Jamie. The Mandy Awards is a celebration. It's the Milwaukee Awards for Neighborhood Development Innovation. LISC has these occurring across the country. Here we hold ours the week before Easter. You can just mark your calendar. And it is where we celebrate what is good, best in class for Milwaukee community development. I see some Mandy winners here in the room right now. And we have 7 categories, including a new category that focuses on collaboration. And we're looking for great collaboratives so that we can celebrate those. Last year, this past couple weeks ago, Northwestern Mutual supported Big Step, and the literacy project was $40,000 for their collaborative. So we work with a lot of folks. We ask people to come in and judge the nominees, and we put forward these as a celebration of the hard work that's done throughout the year. And it's considered the Oscars of community development. We have Oscar music playing and all of that. This is coming up on our 20th in 2019, and so it will be great. I know you had a Rotary table last time, and Mary was gracious enough to sit with us. And I appreciate your asking is there anything else I should tell them about that? Jamie usually introduces the Northern Trust Award. Thank you so much.